So in true Roger fashion, I thought I would give you a quick look at my orchids at the end of that repotting video. You might notice that the light is slightly different because, thanks to me completely making a foul up of the first attempt, this is my second go at this, and it's the following morning because by the time I realised it was pitch black. Anyway, things have moved on since the last time I did something like this. I'm not going to get into too much detail. It'll take far too long, but I'll just give you a quick whiz round what's happening. Particularly the ones that are doing something. Now this is my spring dream, which has got nubbins formed almost to the very top of this year's cane, and also, if you can see round in the background, at an old node, in fact a couple of old nodes on last year's cane as well. Now near that one we've got a spike coming on the top of this Dendrobium phalaenopsis type, and this one is starting up polar fire, and that grew quite a nice cane this year. Now the one that I can't really show to its best advantage from here, I might have to move around a little bit, so excuse it if it goes a bit gonzo. That is what I think is Oncosteely Wildcat Rainbows. If it's not, it's something very, very similar. It's ever so pretty. Bought as a rescue plant about 17 or 18 months ago for a whole £1.50 in a real old state. It flowered for the first time for me in March, and here we are at the end of October, and it's flowering away again. Unfortunately, the only thing wrong with it hasn't got any scent. More nubbins on the Noble A type. This is one of my two Hilda Poxons. That great big cane there is the other one. No sign of any nubbins on that one yet, but it'll be interesting to see what actually turns up. This one is a true Noble A type. This is the variant Cooksonia. Again, no signs of nubbins, but if you can see here, it looks like there's a shape beginning to form. Berioda cakey coming into flower. Margaret Easter's got two more of those, and hers is further on than mine. This is another Sarnook, a huge cane on this one. This is Thailand Black, really long spike that I'm looking forward to seeing. I don't know how well you can see it against the daylight. Oh, that's better. Just starting to colour. That's a lovely deep purple colour. And then there's my Cattleya, a white Cattleya, reluctant bloomer so far, but it's got two buds and they're steadily coming on. Now down here I've got a no ID den fowl, which has got a spike on an old cane. This was one plant I bought around this time last year. When I repotted it, I made a complete mess of it, and I've ended up with 4 plants which actually are recovering at long last. It's taken a long time to get them happy again and get them going. That's Hamani Lake, small Noble A type Dendrobium that's doing well and has got a nice new growth down there. This is one I'm chuffed to bits with. This is my white twinkle, which has actually got 6 spikes from about 9 new growths, so there's probably more to come, and there's only 1 spike per bulb so far. And that's supposed to be white. I don't know what colour it is because I bought it out of flower. This is my other one, which has only got 2 blooms on it, two spikes on it. That one's supposed to be red. That's the other piece of Thailand black that was in the same pot, a separate plant, much smaller. It had tried to flower but didn't succeed. Put up a relatively small cane without putting another one up, so that looks like it's settling in. This is my only mounted orchid. It's Dendrobium falco-rostrum, which Margaret East gave me when we did our swapsies the other week. We've just got back from 10 days in Croatia, and when I got back, that big cane was not looking very happy at all. But it's had a couple of waterings since then, and it is beginning to swell. That thing is a peony. All my others were left outside until the leaves dropped. This one, because I didn't buy it until June, and the new pseudo bulb hadn't really made enough growth, I bought it inside. I may now either put it back outside or cool it down somehow, because I think that's probably got as far as it's going to go. 2 of our bigger Christmas cactus, they're blooming very early this year, but blooming very well. Now the big ones go outside all summer. They seem to do okay. Some of the smaller ones don't. We bought some new ones, which I'll show you in a minute, and you'll see that they got attacked by slugs. Now these 2 are my named Cymbidiums, which I got from Burnham's last year. No sign of flowering, but we have got 1 new growth on one and 3 on the other. Looking at things from the other side, some air plants, which I've moved off the windowsills where they've been living, in case it was getting a bit too cool for them. Spring Dream cakey there. That one is Miltonia spectabilis. That's a thing called a golden pothos, or a devil's vine as some people call it. We saw one of those at Wisley, which is shinning up some of the structure. Started off like this as a potted plant in their one of their cafes, and they put it in the tropical house and let it go, and it's colossal, and the leaves are about 4 times that size. It looks more like the size of a monstera leaf. An epiphyllum cactus, which I've had for several years, given to me by a mate. It actually flowered for me for the first time this year. And the 2 newer Christmas cactus type. Bought these last year because some of them had more than 1 flower on each tip. Doesn't appear to have done that much this time. But these have been inside. I did put them outside, but as you can see just there, they were given a hammering by the slugs, so I fetched them back inside, and these have been fed and watered, and they've sat here on the table, and you can see how happy they are to be there. It's quite difficult to know how to best display these Cymbidiums. I've got 3 of them down here on this tray, which I brought in from outside. I've been outside all summer, and I brought them in. We've got what I'm fairly sure is a flower spike growing there. We've got several new growths coming on these, but the other 2, although they're difficult to see, have also got at least 1 flower spike coming. Another orchid which has kind of got forgotten lately, Bulbophyllum Memoria Karen MacDonald, which I bought from Burnham's earlier this year, put into this holy clay pot. It's doing fine. It's opened all its leaves. They're all looking quite well, and there is a new growth over there. Oh, that hasn't grown an awful lot. I don't know whether it needs to be a bit warmer, whether it needs more light or what, but it just seems to be quite happy. This is what I suppose you'd call my original grow space. It's where I kept my first few orchids, Phalaenopsis almost inevitably. They still do quite well on windowsills. It's basically in here in the kitchen, usually around 2022, and I think the chill coming off the windows is enough to make them spike when it gets a bit cooler in the winter. This one is just a no ID, doing quite well. The last leaf has not grown brilliantly. It's still coming, but I had to cut the tip off. It caught aphids, and I wouldn't honestly have thought that aphids could have done as much damage to that leaf as it did, but obviously when it was new, it was tender enough for them chewing at it to do it damage. This one is one of my older orchids. I described it once before as an old friend, and I repotted it, and I was quite worried about it because it had not done an awful lot for a long time. I don't know what I did really. It just went into a sulk, possibly just because it flowered itself out and I hadn't fed it enough. But it flowered and flowered and flowered and then just stopped. And you can see from the size of the leaf how big this thing could get. It's not put any leaves up for a bit, it didn't put any roots out for a bit, or any roots it put out it didn't do a lot with. Thank goodness, earlier on this year it started to put roots out. It's put a couple of leaves up, so at least it's recovering. This one is the plant that may or may not be Sturbic Red. It's very, very similar to the one that Roger's bought, Roger's Orchids of course. When it came, it was in a sleeve with Inca on, so I looked on the Inca website, that says Sturbic Red, so that's what I'm going with. Roger's found something which says that it's something else altogether. Now, it was in flower, it's gorgeous. It put up this weird new growth, which has now sorted itself out into two. There might have been a third, a bit sticking straight up at the back, but that's not really developed. But the nice surprise is that we've got a flower spike. So it'd be lovely to see that again, because that is a gorgeous orchid. Whatever it is, it's a gorgeous plant. Brassia Chieftain. A funny old plant. The first one I bought, the first spider orchid I bought, stopped me literally in my tracks, and I just said, right, that's coming home. It took a very, very, very long time to produce its next new growth and to put roots down from that next new growth. I began to worry, and then it flowered, and that's put a new growth up, and the roots are there already. So I'm really hoping that's going to start accelerating. This is a Catatanti, repotted soon after I got it, and the pot is absolutely filled with roots wherever you look. And we've got a number of new growths on that, so I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that that will flower before very long. That one, of course, okay, looking from the back, is my Shalob Tolkien. I don't think I could even manage it one-handed. It's a great big lump. Typical Shalob Tolkien, very, very vigorous, roots racking through this pot, and it's already, as you can see there, the roots on the new growths are all over the side. So it really is a case of really don't know what to do with it. But this is it flowered once before with 4 buds on each spike. This one opened up at the end of September, and that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one opened up excuse me. This one opened up while we're away in Croatia, so that's sometime around middle to the end of October. It's been open. The last one opened up on the Sunday we got back last Sunday, and today's the 31st. So that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on. So I don't think that's doing too badly either. Another windowsill, this time in the living room. So this one's facing southeast, whereas the kitchen windowsill you've just seen is northwest, which is where the others mostly are. So this gets morning sunshine, and then nothing much the rest of the day, although it's always reasonably bright. That one, that fowl down there, is one that I bought in Salisbury last March when I went down to the Bournemouth Orchid Society 60th anniversary show weekend. Came in the last jar from Marks and Spencer's, and it's done ever so well. Really pleased with that. I've got some good leaves grown, excellent roots on it, and we've got a spike, and that's a very pretty one. That's sort of a yellow and orange. And my Mini Mark, I do like Mini Mark, such a pretty flower. This spike, previous ones have been sort of mass bloomers. This one's doing quite the opposite. It's having you can see where it's sort of running along, the spike is still extending, and it's just flowering away. And my new Psychopsis, which you saw me repotting in the earlier part of the video. Something interesting that I noticed yesterday when I put it on here was when I bought it, all the the established leaves were dark green. The new growths had mottlings, but the others didn't. And I read or saw somewhere that this mottling is only there if they're getting enough light, and the mottling is starting to reappear. You can perhaps see it on the tip of that one. Right, this is Bartley Schwartz Highland. Got 2 nice new growths on it down here, growing nice and steadily. Don't pulling any trees up, but it's doing all right. This is Zygonosia Rhine Blue Angel, which I bought from Burnham's in July. This should be an absolute picture before much longer, because we've got a nice new developing growth there. There's one you can see fairly well there. There's one underneath the pseudo bulb, and then there's this one which is a bit further on. So I'm really hopeful that if it's a typical Zygopetalum type, that will flower soon. Promenade Sylvana. Another one where I managed to screw up the potting medium for it. Didn't like it, lost all its leaves, but it has now put up 2 new growths, although one of them's come from the tip of an old pseudo bulb. But a bit like some of the things I've seen on peonies, for example, it's now putting some roots out, and that should be fine, I think. One I bought in March, this is Promenade Xanthina. Again, it's taking its time, but these are not quick growers, not in my experience. Anyway, they'll do their thing and they'll flower when they're ready. My first zygo, the one that was supposed to be Sensations, but which is probably Rhine Clown. It's vigorous, it's got lots of roots, we've got 3 new growths forming there. Going to need repotting before long, but as it's climbing it's going to mean taking some of the old bulbs off. Right, this is another northwest facing windowsill. This is actually over the kitchen, one of our spare bedrooms. Fowls again for a start. This one I'm really can't wait to see this grow again. This is a one I bought from Tesco's. It's got the most lovely purple flowers. It's grown well, we've got lots of roots, but as yet no sign of a spike. This one I've had a while. Not completely happy, I don't think, but having said that, we've got roots growing and it's just put out a little spike. Rhinanthera growing steadily, some new leaves coming. We'll see how we get on with that. This one and this one are both Delenatii. That is the standard type, this is the vinicol, and you can see the difference in the backs of the leaves. Phragmipedium Humboldtii, which I nearly killed last year, wrecked a really good plant. When I really didn't know what I was doing, is the top and bottom of it, and it's still fighting its way back to a recovery. A Rhinanthera Zeretianopsis cross, which is put out some roots, put out some leaves, waiting to see where that one goes. Mordii, vigorous grower, done well for me. And this one at the back is Callosum, which I bought at the Hampton Court show earlier this year. Phalaenopsis, one of the big leaf types, the pale green leaf. This is one I bought last year as Leodoro. Very, very pretty they are. This is a new spike. We've got buds, we've got extensions to come, but if you look round here we've got old spikes are branching all over the place, so that could be great. And finally on this one, this is Paphiopedilum American hybrid. It's what some people call the bulldog path complex hybrid, but it's made a plant that, although it's big, it's an absolute doddle. Treat it like more or less like a Phalaenopsis, and away it'll go. And we've got a flower bud on the way, just peeked out a couple of days ago. The last of the windowsills. This is my computer in my office, if you will. These two are the Berryoda mother plants. There were two in the same pot when I came to try and repot it, so I separated them. I've had a few problems with these trying to get them to go. I've had some new growths sort of abort, but they do now seem to have settled, both of them. We've got a spike on this one. This one, which is definitely the better one of the two, has got more spikes on, and we've got some one or two that are already open. I think they are a very pretty little flower. And the monster. This is a huge Phalaenopsis, ridiculously vigorous, roots like Medusa's hair. I've got a branch off this old spike which is finally pushed on, having threatened it for ages. But just look at the size and length of this new spike. It just seems to go on and on and on. This is of course Pink Twilight, and I'd love to show you the flower. I have no idea if I could, because it just goes on and on and on, and you can see to try and tame this spike as well as I can, I've just got a clothes peg clip to it trying to pull it around, but it's still going. How long this is going to be before it finally backs up, I don't know. And there's the flower. Not a great lover of pinks, but that's pretty special. This is my Vanda, which I keep in a glass jar. Water it 2 or 3 times a week. Just fill the thing up, leave it for a couple of hours. Really wasn't sure whether I was going to get anywhere with it. It's purely an experimental job, or at least it was in the initial phases, and lo and behold we're going to get some of those absolutely glorious apricot brandy flowers before very much longer. I'm really pleased with that, because that's a beautiful plant. This little one is one I got from Margaret East. This is Dendrobium cruminatum. It's the pigeon orchid. Nice new growth on there. She gave me 2 of these, and that's the second. That's also got a new growth coming. But these are going to be very awkward to try and flower. They've got a very particular requirement to make them flower, which is going to be interesting to actually manage. Phalaenopsis equestris, growing well, not putting any more new roots out, but it's putting some nice leaves out. I've got several Spring Dream cakeys in here. This is Dendrobium tetragonum, which I hoped was going to flower, but now I just don't know whether it will or it won't, whether that sheet's actually going to do any good. One that's doing an awful lot of good is this one. This is Dendrobium oligophyllum, which I bought from Burnham's last July. I suppose really, since I've only had it since July, I can't really take too much credit for the way it's growing. But I mean, what fascinates me about this, and it really does, now you can see that one, is trying to open. I hope we can see that. No, it won't behave itself. That's better, I think. You can just see that flower is trying to open. And the thing that absolutely fascinates me is, as you can see on that one, and even that's quite big, when these things start to push out a flower spike, they are tiny. Good job, I'd nearly finished. Down at the front are some Hildepoxum seedlings, and that pretty much sums it all up. So, having managed to get that oligophyllum out of its pot, I'm going to have to go downstairs and sort that out. Never mind, all in a day's work, isn't it, with orchids. Okay folks, that's that, and with this view of the autumn colours in our backyard, I'll say goodbye and I'll see you next time.